Welcome to the Science of Parenting podcast, where we connect you with research-based information that fits your family. I'm Lori Cordles, parent of 3 in 2 different life stages. 2 are launched and 1 is still in high school, and I'm a parenting educator.
And I'm Mackenzie Johnson, parent of 2 littles with their own quirks, and I'm a parenting educator. Today, we'll talk about the realities of raising a family and how research can help guide our parenting decisions. Hey everybody, welcome back. We're in episode 2 of season 9, talking all about regulation here, right?
We are, and last week we talked about what regulation was. We looked at how it impacts our thoughts and our emotions, our children's behaviors. Actually, I should rephrase that. We talked about how it impacts our children's thoughts, emotions, behaviors, because this week we're talking about how it impacts our thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and how do we regulate ourselves?
Yes, and this whole idea of like, I'm the adult in this
know.
interaction with this child.
Yes,
I guess I gotta regulate.
I must be the adulting adult in this relationship
Sometimes I
here.
need an adultier one.
Yes,
Right? In an
exactly.
interaction. But yeah, so like, okay, parent-child relationship, regulation. We talked about understanding what regulation is and how to teach it. And this week we got to talk about it for ourselves.
For ourselves. So
We can do it.
we can. And we're looking at it through this handbook of parenting. It's really an awesome tool chest created and edited by Mark Bornstein. And we just have been utilizing it as a way to really sift through the research so that you can apply it to your reality.
Yes, I love this book. It's such a good like summary of current research on a very like honed in topic. And so yeah, Dr. Wendy Grolnick and colleagues talking about regulation. And I love it.
It's awesome. Awesome. So this was mentioned. What we're going to do is talk about this whole idea of self-regulation, and it was mentioned in the context of infants, but we're actually going to expand this idea to all children because we really think that it does apply to all children. And the idea is that one common situation faced by parents is this need to regulate our own emotions when our child is, having the throwdown, as Barb Dunn Swanson calls it, or our child is distressed and our emotions are immediately coming into play, and how we help the child self-regulate really has to start with how we self-regulate.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's unfair, honestly, is the word that comes to mind. That this is a pretty specific it's a pretty specific situation for parents. Like when I'm interacting with another adult and my emotions or my behavior or what like my attitude and my thoughts start to like struggle, I get dysregulated, right? I usually just have to worry about me, but when I'm a parent, I'm all dysregulated and overwhelmed or tired or frustrated or whatever. And I'm experiencing that while I'm trying to regulate another human being, like trying to co-regulate or trying to help them get regulated.
Yes.
And that is wildly unfair, can I just say?
Yeah.
Severe disadvantage.
It is a severe disadvantage because you're trying to regulate 2 people, not just 1. And the other person is a little human being, and
they just don't know yet.
They're just brain, even if they're, 15 or 16, their brain just isn't done developing. And so yes, in the whole world, in the scheme of things, parenting and co-regulation and self-regulation is not fair because you have to learn how to do it for both people at the same time.
Right. And so this idea of co-regulating, regulating them while we get regulated. When is that hardest for you as a parent? That idea of like, I gotta get mine figured out while I'm helping them get theirs figured out.
Oh, yes. So I think of 2 things specifically. So if I were to say a behavior that is super hard on me when it comes to needing to self-regulate myself first, that would be like whining. I my ability to regulate myself goes down drastically if the child is whining. Like, I can handle, hitting, kicking, all that kind of thing, but
Mhm.
it's the whining that suddenly my defenses are low, my tolerance bucket is empty,
Yeah.
and then I guess the other thing is especially when my children were younger, in so I did some work at home before there was this work at home stuff, right? And so if
Yeah.
I was working at home on
Mm.
the clock and then my children were whining, I mean, that was like a double whammy.
Yeah.
Total double whammy. So given the
Yes.
context of what was it that I was doing, well, I was trying to complete my professional job and then bring in the whining child, like, self-regulation out the window. Yeah.
Gone. She gone.
Gone, gone. Yeah, how about you?
Oh, mine when I was like, okay, what no, it's not what is hardest or when, it's where.
Where? Oh, yes, there you go.
Where it's hardest for me?
Mhm.
In the car.
Oh,
Oh, in the car.
you're so stuck.
I
You can't
was
escape.
yes, and I honestly hadn't even connected those dots when we were talking through this, and you and Barbara were like, "Well, yeah, you can't get like you're in the car. You can't just like walk away."
Yes.
I'm stuck, literally in a seatbelt.
Yep.
That yeah. So in the car, and there's something about the like split attention, which is kind of what you're talking
Mm.
about with like work and whining.
Mhm.
Yeah, if they're whining in the back seat, if my children are like fighting, if they're honestly, even if they're just crying because they're thirsty, like which happens.
Yeah.
How has that always happened? um, but it's just like, "Stop, stop, stop, please stop. I need you to stop."
Yes.
They're the idea of, like, getting myself regulated, even if I'm not the driver. I mean, especially if I'm the driver, but even if I'm the, like, front passenger,
Yes.
I just needed to stop all of it. And so getting me, like, calmed and regulated enough to, like,
Yes.
help them, and I also can't physically, like, hold them,
No.
right? I lose some of the strategies I would normally lean into.
Oh, yes.
I hadn't thought of that till right now, but so
Yes.
in the car, it's really hard for me to do the co-regulation and
Yes.
the especially I mean, even if it's not, co-regulating together, it's hard for me to just regulate me even.
Mhm. Yeah.
Something about that.
And
And the
when you
sound in the
you
car.
you made that sound where you went, and I was like, "Oh, that's right." Barb said, it's like having to put your mask on first in the
Yes.
airplane, so then before you can help others.
Yeah.
That was exactly what you just did. Like, I don't know
Yes.
how to even put my mask on in the car so that I can help
Yes.
my children, right? Yeah,
Yes, and they're yeah, out the window.
out the
Like the
window.
physical car window is
Yeah.
gone. Like, it gone with the wind, that
Yes.
self-regulation, but and it's not I have strategies I can tap into. Put that in my mind. I have strategies I
But
can
you're
tap
right.
into.
You just got, a good drawer full of strategies taken away because you have to stay
Yeah,
in your seatbelt, they have to stay in their car
yeah.
seats.
Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm unpacking a lot today. A lot
Alright,
is
so
happening for me.
here's another piece of research. Another piece of research basically tells us that our emotional regulation is influenced by our our child's development in terms of how do they learn to regulate? How do they learn
Mhm.
to regulate? They're watching us.
Yeah.
How do they learn to regulate? They're interacting with us. How do they learn to regulate? They're in this environment and they're feeling the environment. Okay, so again, we go back to that idea of we, the parent, we're in charge of two people's regulation because
Mhm.
the child is watching us. We influence them.
Yeah.
We raise our voice, they raise theirs.
Mhm.
They're watching how we behave. We, kick the foot of the couch, they kick the foot of the couch, right?
Yes.
We drop that four-letter word, they drop that four-letter word. And so our regulation is being observed. We are modeling regulation. They are mirroring our
Mhm.
regulation. And so, again, like you said, it's totally unfair because if I want to teach them, oof, I gotta do it first. So
Yes.
if I want to teach them to be calm, cool, and collected when I say no, Ooh, I have to be calm, cool, and collected when someone tells me no. When they tell me no,
Yeah.
heaven forbid, no. Like, I
Yes.
cannot lose my cool when my child says
Oh,
no.
because I'm supposed to tell them and model them when I tell them no.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm lost in my own bubble for a second because, I'm thinking about wasn't last night, within the last week, the the squabbling, my kids are, like, picking at each other about something, and they start yelling,
Oh,
they
yes.
yank the toy from opposite directions kind of or whatever it is, and they're, like, me yelling, "Stop yelling," like, "Stop yelling!
Stop yelling.
Stop yelling!" And I'm like, "Ugh, the modeling, the modeling, the
Yes.
modeling."
Oh, the
That's alright. It's not
modeling.
about perfection, right?
That's
Um,
right. Oh,
not
goodness.
about perfection because none of us would be getting it. But yeah, that we affect our kids even when, sometimes we're actively like we're being proactive about teaching
Mhm.
them how to regulate, but even when we're not consciously teaching, that modeling, right? That RPM 3 from
Absolutely.
season 4 of right? Season
I
4?
think so.
That was one of the M's is
Yeah,
modeling because intentional or not, they're picking up on that from
they
us.
are. Yes.
And it's a big part, especially emotion regulation.
Mhm.
You
It
kick the
is.
couch, you yell, "Stop yelling."
Yeah,
It all comes through.
it does.
So the other, that's like I told Lori, I'm like, what you say is part two, right? Research tidbit
Yes.
number two is the modeling portion. I have research tidbit 2.5. And that's Patterson tells us, which is Goldsnick is the one who's citing Patterson for us. A child's dysregulated behavior can be increased and maybe even reinforced by maladaptive parenting. So, AKA
Ooh.
maladaptive,
Mhm.
maladaptive, right? Terminology. In other words, we need to be regulated so that we can practice those
Mhm.
positive discipline strategies we looked at last season.
Mhm.
And we talked about last season when we were talking about positive discipline that it takes a lot of effort.
Absolutely.
That must be what effortful means, Lori.
Effortful control.
Effortful control. We talked
Yes,
about that last episode, but effortful. It takes a lot of effort to practice positive discipline.
it
And
does.
when we're not regulated, it's hard to do regulated sometimes, but
Yes.
when we're not regulated, we can be accidentally reinforcing behavior we don't like. Um,
Absolutely.
and so I thought that was an interesting of like the modeling we do
Mhm.
is one way we teach, but even just the idea of accidentally reinforcing
Mhm.
because we weren't, I mean,
Yes.
conscious enough almost like
Yes. We
being
are caught
mindfully
off
aware.
guard and yes.
Yeah. And so yeah, it can accidentally reinforce. And we talked about that like behavior reaction cycle. And there was one season, what season was it where like in our intro, every episode we talked about it's bi-directional.
Oh, yes.
Remember? What
Yeah,
what were
I don't know.
we talking about?
That's our producer's job to tell
Right?
us
Come
those
on, Ken.
things, right? Yeah,
She'll tell us. I don't know.
she'll tell us.
But that we talked about parenting's bi-directional and that I affect my kids and my kids
Mhm.
affect me.
Yes.
And so we know there's just a lot that comes into this idea of regulating our own behavior as parents. There's a lot of context, there's a lot of requirements, there's a lot of
Mhm.
pressure. And you know what? Sometimes there's a lot of people, right?
Oh
Depending on
my
two
goodness.
children
Yes.
feels like a lot of people
It
to be in
does.
charge of the regulation.
What did I say
Oh,
last time? All my children? I was like,
yeah,
"Wait, I
all of
I
them.
only have 3." I don't
I don't know. Sometimes it feels like a lot.
it's not a gaggle. Yeah.
So in thinking and keeping with this theme of, okay, I'm the adult here, right? I'm the parent. So I've got to find ways to think about getting regulated. We want to talk a little bit about being regulated or dysregulated across those different ways, right?
Mhm.
We talked about behavior regulation, emotion regulation, and thought regulation or attitude and
Yes.
cognition being the formal term. And so we want to give some examples of what it looks like to regulate or not regulate those things.
Okay.
So,
Oh, well, you start. You start.
okay. Okay. Well, I would say I like to do the behavior one.
Okay, you do
Because
that one.
I feel like that it's tangible, right?
Yes.
That one's
Yes.
tangible. And so I would say that regulating behavior or being dysregulated and our parenting behaviors could include things like harsh words or kind words. When
Mhm.
we're regulated, we can regulate again, that means like to alter based on the context, based on the situation,
Right.
And so using kind words or harsh words can be affected by our regulation. Another one is what type of discipline we choose. Do we use something like physical punishment versus teaching kids what we want them to do, right?
That
That takes a
positive.
very conscious flip. We have to be regulated that takes a lot of upstairs brain, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then
Season 1.
another, what?
Season 1.
Season 1. Yeah. We're giving all kinds of
I
references today. All kinds of
know.
throwbacks. But then, another one that I thought of in terms of things that we do when it comes to regulation is even just tapping out to another adult. Like
Absolutely.
when we're dysregulated, that could be a strategy for us, but just recognizing when I choose to do that, that can be me choosing to alter my behavior. Me
Mhm.
choosing to be in control of my behavior rather than letting it get out of my control.
Yes.
So, what about a few more examples in another area?
Okay, so those were all behaviors. So really
Mhm.
legitimately things that you could see or hear yourself as a parent do
Yeah.
to create regulation. Okay, so I will do cognition or thinking. And
Mhm.
I liked how you said that, it could also be your attitude. So
Yeah.
to self-regulate, to keep myself regulated as I'm thinking about modeling these to my children, I think the first thing that really comes to mind for me is this idea that I want to reframe. I want to
Mm.
reframe in terms of, wow, you are feeling very angry right now.
Yeah.
I can tell that you are having this really big emotion
Mhm.
versus me saying, stop yelling, right?
Okay.
Okay, right? So I'm reframing this idea of you have this big emotion. Stop being naughty. We sometimes hear that word naughty,
Yeah.
right? So throw that word out and reframe it and say, you know, wow, I can really tell that you are frustrated right now because
Mhm.
you're using your hurting hands.
Yes.
And
I heard the
you
phrase, "You're a good person having a hard time," instead of,
Yes.
"You're naughty." I heard that one the other day.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. You're a good person having a hard time.
Mhm.
You could say something reframing. I don't like it when your hands hurt other people,
Yeah.
right? I still think you're a great kid.
Mhm.
You have some awesome talents and abilities, but right now your
Mhm.
hands are hurting other people. So the idea of
Yes.
reframing. And then again, I'm really big into that whole developmental mindset of
Mm.
what skills do they actually have and what are my expectations, right? So
Yeah.
so that developmentally, am I expecting something of them that they actually can do? So I have to self-regulate my thinking by saying, wow, is it really an expectation? Should I actually think that my 1-year-old can share? um
Mm.
no. Okay, so I
Mhm.
need to regulate myself from, you know whatever kind of thing I was going to do, pull the toy away, whatever, and just say,
Yes.
whoa, you know what, Lori, developmentally, they're
Mhm.
just one. The whole idea of sharing, that's a big person,
Yes.
that's a big person thing that needs to happen.
Yes, and that's you aligning
Hmm.
your mindset, your attitude, your cognition
Yep.
with the situation, which
With
is I have a 1-year-old.
Exactly. I have a 1-year old.
Yes.
And then honestly, I think that again, my intensity level is less intense when it comes to temperament.
Mhm.
And so there was a lot
Season
of,
3.
and there you go. Nice. There was a lot of children's behaviors that I could ignore because
Yeah.
my temperament
Mm.
wasn't as, it didn't run as hot. It doesn't
Mhm.
run as hot.
Yeah.
And so ignoring is a way that I completely use all the time to regulate my thinking. I'm just going
Mhm.
to ignore it. They're trying to get my attention. I'm not going to give them attention for negative behavior. I
Mhm.
choose to align and ignore this behavior. And
Yes.
that honestly, I do attribute that to my less intense temperament.
Yeah.
I can ignore bad behavior like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, yes. And so those are ways you're like aligning your thought process or your mindset or your attitude. Like, I'm gonna align it to what's appropriate for the situation. Like,
Mhm.
you're in control of it rather than it's dysregulated and it's in control.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I
And
love
I I
that.
should I should c I should say I can ignore those annoying behaviors,
Ah,
right?
yeah.
The annoying ones,
Mhm.
not
And there's a difference, as parents. I mean, honestly, our values kind of decide this, like Barb said
yes,
last week, but that what is annoying versus what needs to be addressed. But
exactly.
that ignoring can be a helpful strategy.
Exactly,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But it can take, right, cognitive, like, I am ignoring this, I am
I'm
ignoring
ignoring
this,
this,
I
I'm
am
ignoring this.
ignoring this.
I'm smiling. My throat, chin, jaw, and shoulders
Yeah.
are all relaxed. I'm
Ah.
ignoring. Yeah. All right, 3rd category.
All right, that leaves emotional regulation. And so I actually just wanted to give a few examples of what that looks like with different kinds of emotions. So I
Yes.
think we tend to think of some of the negative ones, but we want to start with some positive ones. Um, we talk about excitement. As
Mhm.
a parent, sometimes it's like, okay, don't look at them. They're doing it. Don't look, don't look, don't look. Right? Um, I I even think like one of the first times my kids were pretty shy. And so venturing out to like play with another kid on their own, it was like, they're
Mhm.
doing it, they're doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
I need
Shh,
to play it
shh, don't.
cool.
Yeah.
Play it cool. Right?
Yes.
But that is me regulating emotion.
Mhm.
The context, if I want to support this behavior, I need to
Mhm.
regulate that.
Yes.
I also think of even like pride. Like
Mm.
sometimes we're so proud of our kids, and sometimes we need to almost delay expressing that. I think like with teens or our older kids who maybe might feel like a little more embarrassed
Sure.
of something like that, you might be like, okay, I'm gonna tell them later. I'm not gonna, right? I'm not gonna make a big fuss about it.
Yes.
I think of like the yelling at graduation.
Oh,
Some
yes.
of my siblings would have been horrified if we had done that to them.
Yes.
But different ones we could. But
Mhm.
anyway, and then, there is things like anger.
Mhm.
Sometimes I am so mad in this moment and I need to choose to, whether that's just delay it or find a way to suppress it. But figuring out what does it mean? How do we need to align that with the situation? Um,
Exactly.
and the other emotion that I thought of in parenting was fear.
Ooh,
I
yes.
think, a lot of us talk about like a mom's worst nightmare, a dad's worst nightmare,
Mhm.
of something scary happening to their kids. And how do we regulate that? So if our kids
Mhm.
make a choice that feels super unsafe,
Yes.
sometimes the emotion of fear is what's dysregulated when we
Yes.
react so huge because we're terrified of what could have happened.
Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely.
but so there's different ways that we regulate emotion sometimes, right? Sometimes we delay it, sometimes we suppress it. And sometimes we need to like, okay, I need to feel something, right? I need to
Yes.
I need to respond a little bit.
Absolutely.
So it can be different, but there's all kinds of different ways, right? So when we're talking about this regulation as parents, right?
Yes.
Behavior, cognition, and emotion. Lots of different ways we do it.
And it makes me again go back to the title. I'm the adult here.
I'm the adult here.
I'm the
Ru-
adult here.
Kind of
Oh,
rude that that happened to
yeah.
me somehow, but
Yeah, I'm
but
the
I have to
adult
be the
here.
adult here.
Yes.
Oh,
All right.
yes.
Well, what are some strategies that we could
Mhm.
use when it comes to these?
Yes, and so all those different kinds of regulation, and there's actually one strategy in the literature across all kinds of literature, not just parenting, that really fits into this idea of regulation, and that is mindfulness.
Yes.
Right? Mindfulness.
Uh,
So we can
okay.
use that as a strategy to self-regulate, there's different definitions based on what you're looking at, but it's basically like the awareness of yourself. This can be
Mm,
like physically, emotionally. It can be an awareness of yourself or of other people,
mhm.
right? It can even just be about being present, right? Mentally present. And so there is research actually back in the 90s that says that mindfulness can improve the relationship that we have with our kids.
Oh,
When
wow.
parents practice mindfulness, it can improve our relationship. And so they have this idea of being mindful of our behavior, of our attitude, right? Of our thoughts,
Mhm.
of our emotions.
Oh, I love
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
So when I think of
Mindfulness.
yeah, when I think of mindfulness, it used to be kind of scary because I thought, "Oh, I don't know, like I'm not very good at meditating."
Yeah,
So
like the
y
formal practice of
right?
yeah.
Yes, and then I had to kind of relearn that that's not what it really means. What it
Yeah,
means,
that's not what it always
Lori,
means.
yes, is you just came back into recognizing where you're at this very moment. So I
Mhm.
don't know about you, but I can get totally lost in thought, and not hear anything around me
Yes.
at times, especially in the middle of a really long story, that a
Oh.
child may be telling me, and I might start thinking about dinner or the email
Mhm.
or right. And so the act of simply recognizing, oof, I'm thinking about dinner and she just told me something about her friend Sally, and now I'm gonna have to ask her what was that? Just that act of recognizing I was missing for a second and coming
Mhm.
back to it. That's mindfulness. That's
Yes.
that's mindfulness.
That simple. It can be that simple. One
Yes.
that I've been kind of proactively working on is being more, people say like savor every moment. Okay, I don't savor every moment, but one that I've been not all of them,
Yeah.
especially not in the car, not in the car. um, but one that I have been trying to be more I think I like the term like mindfully aware rather
Yes.
than like mindfulness. I don't know.
Yes.
I do practice meditation from time to time to kind of clear my head. But for my parenting, it's more about like I'm going to be present in this moment. And sometimes it's even as simple as like what are the sensory experiences I'm having.
Oh,
So like
yes.
mine has been like snuggling my kids at bedtime.
Mhm.
So, like and it's not every day, it's not all the time, but, like, my son still wants to sit in the chair with me, so I'm thinking about, like, he's warm, there's a little drool on my shoulder probably, if I'm honest, but it's warm, it's the pressure and, like, the sweet stuff their head just fits so good on your, like,
It
shoulder,
does.
and even, like, laying with my daughter as sh like, when she gets ready for bed, maybe I, like, smell the conditioner in her hair,
Mhm.
and but so I've just been working on even if it's just for 5 seconds, I'm really working on these moments won't last forever. These are
Right.
the kinds of moments I won't savor all of them. I
Yeah.
can't savor all of them.
Yes.
But like this is one where I can be mindfully present of like, oh, this is sweet
Oh,
when we do this.
yes. I
And
love that.
that's simple.
Yes. Aware.
Mhm. Yeah,
Aware.
exactly. And it's cognitive. It's
Mhm.
what I'm choosing to give my attention
Yes.
to what I'm choosing to give my attention to. So that's just a simple strategy of because we're the adult here. We gotta find ways
Mhm.
to regulate our thoughts. And I love the ideas you gave around cognition because I do think that one's sometimes hard to understand. And
Yes.
those are really good examples. So
Oh,
I'm excited. We can practice some mindfulness this week.
we can. We can. So this season we are talking about regulation. We've shared that with you, but what we're going to also do this season is bring our writer Barb Dunn Swanson in because she kind of has, I love what Mackenzie said last week, a sweet spot for
Yeah.
regulation. And so we just invite Barb back in this week during our Stop Breathe Talk time to share a little bit with you all who are listening or watching about us, the adult, having to regulate.
We're the adult here.
Yeah,
Still.
still.
And what's good about that is what we always put first and foremost when we start with the science of parenting is parents are the first educators of their children,
Mhm.
Hmm.
right? And as that first educator, then they take on that enormous responsibility of getting regulated first.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes.
So I'm going to follow up with you a little bit with a little bit of that research that Gralnick and her colleagues
Yes.
put forth. And you've mentioned it already, but then I'm going to see if I can ask you maybe for an example or two
Ooh,
from
okay.
your experiences. So the research talks about four specific things that if we as adults will practice, our
Hmm.
children will be more likely to internalize and be able to begin to self-regulate,
Okay,
okay?
Okay.
okay.
So one of the, uh, points is the environment. What's something in your environment that you could change that would help your child to regulate better? Is there something that you may have done in the past?
Oh,
Turn off the TV.
I was,
Okay.
oh, ding, 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 ding,
I would
ding.
say that's something in my environment that affects my
Yes,
regulation and my child's is
Thank
yes.
when
you.
there's the extra sound, right? The TV
Yeah.
sometimes is a
Turn
part
off
of
the
our environment.
noise
Yeah.
whatever the noise is coming from. Yes.
Mhm.
Turn off the what is it? Turn off the radio so I can see better?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're in the car and
I'm in
you
the
turn the
car.
radio
I'm
off
always
so
in
you
the
can
car.
see.
She's always
Okay,
Okay.
here's another one. Warmth. How do you show maybe additional warmth in the heat of the moment when you both may be feeling dysregulated? What is a way or a strategy you can show warmth?
Okay, so I really sometimes make it a practice to think about my hands being down at my side or
Mm.
or my palms being up so that it's a subtle cue of I'm open to what you're saying. I embrace
Oh,
what you're saying. So my
I
arms
love
might be
that.
down a little bit apart, my palms might be up, and I may be inside going, "Oh my goodness, I cannot believe what they're saying." But my palms and my arms are open to say, I'm open to
Hmm.
warm conversation with you. How about that?
Thank you.
Mm,
That is
I
really
love
good.
that. That's so funny you mentioned your hands because mine is like, okay, driver's ed teachers of the world don't listen,
Yeah.
because I'm in the car again. But I will literally sometimes reach back to my daughter's seat, and just hold her hand. Like
Mm,
I can't think, I can't talk to you. Like
mhm.
I can tell you're having a hard time, and
Yes.
and just for a minute, and that's what I can offer. And not always in the car. Sometimes it's
Yes.
just like you're having a hard time, and I offer to hold your hand,
Yes.
or to help you up,
Oh, I
or
love that. Yep.
so just like a little physical touch. Sometimes is how I
Yep.
offer that extra warmth.
Yes.
Love those explanations. Okay, here's another one.
Okay.
Involvement.
Mm,
Again, we're looking at the research tells us
mm-hmm.
these things I'm pointing out here, if we do these with our children, more likely they are to be able to regulate and
Mm-hmm.
internally regulate. So, involvement, how do you get more involved or what can you do that allows them to be involved?
I was a Girl Scout troop leader for a while.
Yeah.
I think that gave me plenty of opportunity to model self-regulation to the girls
Yes.
when there were all 12 of the little brownies around selling cookies,
Yes.
right? Yeah, I think that just that show you when
Mm,
you're involved with their activities and things they like to do, you're just modeling how to self-regulate when the tower falls down and knocks
mm,
your broken toe, right?
yeah,
Or yes,
whatever it is.
whatever it is.
Um, See, and I didn't even think like involvement in activities, like yeah, like being
Mm,
your kid's coach or whatever. I immediately was just like being involved in the routines of the
yeah.
day of we're a part, even just like the transportation of we
Yes.
get you to and from, or
Yes.
um helping you get dressed, like help making sure you brush your teeth. I think I see the involvement in those kinds of daily things, or even kind of the rituals of like bedtime,
Right.
mealtime,
Right.
and just sometimes just being physically a part of that, because
Yes.
those are big parts of my kids' day while they're little.
Mackenzie, you bring up such a good point, and that is that you might not have thought of that because of where your children are developmentally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Lori's kids are older, and so her life experiences reminded her of those times as a leader. And
Hmm.
then your children are still needing the kind of care and support that you provide
Hmm.
daily, which might be more those at home kinds
Hmm.
of needs. And
Yeah.
so, thank you for reminding us that all of these things are dependent upon where our children are at developmentally, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
And then the last one, and this one's really, I think, easy to say, but hard to specify because we
Okay.
think we're doing it all the time, but caring. Let's say this, when we're in the midst of something that is really difficult, like a big emotion,
Hmm.
it might be really difficult to show additional caring, but that's when our kids need it the
Hmm.
most.
Mhm.
Because we don't wanna leave them feeling like, "I don't like you as a person.
Yes.
I may not
Yes.
like the behavior that I see right now. I may not like the words you chose right now,
Yes.
but I like you as a child of mine. What additional caring support could you show
Mhm.
when you need to?
I have one.
Okay.
Uh, I would say, like, empathy and validation of the reason
Mm.
my child is doing something. And so, I talk all about hitting.
Yeah.
That's still happening, by the way. But how, like, understanding, like, you were wanting my attention.
Mm.
You were wanting to be playful. You want that back. You're mad,
Mhm.
right? And so whether it's hitting or something else, but like validating and being like, it is really hard. My daughter's real into fairness right now. You know what? You're right. It's not fair that I always get to choose.
Mhm.
It's not fair that I always choose which direction the car goes. That is unfair. But validating that, like, you're right.
Mhm.
And that their reasoning can be,
Yes.
um, yeah, is valid even if the behavior is not acceptable. So that's one
Yes.
way I feel like showing caring in the midst of it.
I it was okay, so I was thinking I'm thinking of sporting events
Yeah.
when children maybe are on the losing end or they didn't get the
Mm,
spot that they wanted, they didn't get to play as much, they didn't um and you as the parent recognize that you know you heard their attitude on the bench or you heard the
mm,
you saw that they were really struggling and the shots weren't going in and so they were replaced and so that whole idea of caring a little extra even when it is totally valid.
yeah.
They missed curfew and
Mm,
yes, they
error.
just yeah, fair, right? They just lost these privileges. And so,
Mhm.
you know what? I'm going to show I care a little bit more by you want to play a card game? I know you're, in lockdown.
Yeah.
Let's play cards.
Yes. Yeah, and I think kind of the theme of, like, sometimes we just gotta show up,
Yeah.
like, in these moments with them.
Yep.
And that's the caring, that's the involvement, that's all of them is just showing up is, I think, so powerful for our kids.
Yes. Yes. Good
That was a
questions.
that was such a good way to describe that, just showing up.
Mm.
And so really what we know is that when those young people know what our values are, they're watching the behaviors that we as adults model, and then you know what happens?
Mhm.
They see that as a way for them to respond going forward.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I love the ideas that you gave, and I think it just helps us see that we have to take responsibility first, and it was like what we talked about in last season, or maybe the temperament seasons when we
Every
said,
season.
yeah, if we're gonna look at why their temperament is the way they are,
Mhm.
okay, genetically, they're from us, so
Yeah.
Right?
the
Let's grab a mirror.
we have
Yes.
to be able to, look back and say, "Okay,
Yes.
what part
Mm,
do I play in this?" And in
Mhm.
terms of regulation, we can play a huge role, and it can be really positive. You've pointed that out. You talk about how you can reframe
Yes.
the way we express ourselves so that kids see things as positive rather than negative. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to be enjoying seeing what next our next topic will be, because
yes.
again, regulation is this huge topic and I know there's just
Mm.
more to unpack. So thanks for letting me be part of this session, and we'll look forward to what's coming up.
Thank you,
Yes.
Barb.
Thanks so much, Barb.
Y-
I'll say that was fun. That was
Yeah,
kind
it
of a
was.
fun stop
Yeah.
retalk. We never know when
Y
they're coming in. Like,
yeah, we
Lori
don't.
literally, we literally don't know what they're gonna say.
No, we
But yeah,
don't.
that was kind of a fun take.
We do often try to say, "Well, you could say this when
Uh-huh.
you do that stop, breathe, talk," and
And every
they
once in a while they'll do it, but
yes, no,
not even once a season.
oftentimes they do their own thing.
Yeah,
I
and
know.
so but yeah, that was fun, Barb, thank you,
Yeah.
and it's a nice way to kind of wrap up thinking about this idea of how we as the adults must regulate first.
Yes.
Understanding that regulation, we learned last episode that it's really about aligning our behavior or controlling ourselves across our behavior and our emotion and our cognition
Mhm.
in a way that makes sense for the context or the situation,
Yes.
particularly with our kids. And so we do that with our modeling, whether that's intentional or not, right? And we impact each other. So we have a lot of opportunity and responsibility as parents when it
Yes.
comes to regulation.
We do. Well, thanks for joining us this week on the Science of Parenting podcast. And remember to check out our blog posts written by our teammate, Barb Dunn Swanson,
Yes.
that go along with each episode on thescienceofparenting.org.
Yes. Please do come along with us as we tackle the ups and downs, the ins and outs, and the research and reality all around the science of parenting.
The Science of Parenting is hosted by Lori Kothals and Mackenzie Johnson, produced by Mackenzie DeYoung, with research and writing by Barbara Dunn Swanson. Send in questions and comments to parenting@iastate.edu and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. For the full non-discrimination statement or accommodation inquiries, go to www.extension.iastate.edu/diversity/ext.